In this video, we're going to go over the thinking it through on page 103. Key ideas. Number one, how do physical features and climate influence where people live in the South Pacific regions? Give 3 examples. Now, if you take a look at Australia and New Zealand, most people live in the coastal regions. The temperate climate tends to attract a lot of the people, and they live in urban areas near the ocean. The temperate climate with plentiful rainfall also attracts people. Nearly 90% of Australia's 22 million people live in coastal cities like Sydney or Melbourne. Few people live in Australia's dry desert regions in the center of the continent. This area has very warm temperatures and very little rainfall all year. On the smaller Pacific Islands, people tend to live in small villages in hilly or mountainous areas near the coastline. Here, the climate is tropical with heavy rainfall and high temperatures all year long. In the mountains, precipitation will increase and temperatures will fall with increased elevation. New Zealand has a maritime climate. It's mild and wet. Most people live on the North Island. The presence or lack of natural resources associated with the physical features will also determine the attraction of the region with settlers. Question number 2. How is your community influenced by the region's physical features and climate? So when people originally immigrated to Saskatchewan, most tended to settle around areas near water. So the people, if you take a look at the colony, one of the things that attracted them to where you live is the high quality land. So it was very good for crop production. Some other people in Saskatchewan decided to take advantage of things such as forestry. Prince Albert region, for example, or areas where minerals were abundant. Thinking critically, question number 3. How do population, resources, and economic activities vary in different parts of the South Pacific region? Okay, so for population, if you take a look at Australia, it's very dense on the east coast and south coast, especially in large cities such as Sydney and Melbourne, very sparse and arid regions. New Zealand, most people live on the North Island. In the South Pacific, people live in small villages on hillsides or on the coast. Few people live in the mountains. For resources in Australia, they have bauxite, iron, diamonds, coal, and natural gas. New Zealand actually has very few mineral resources. In the South Pacific, on the low islands, there's poor soil and little vegetation, few mineral or energy resources. On the high islands, there's fertile soil producing various agricultural products such as bananas, cacao, and other crops. Resources also include gold, copper, and oil. For economic activity, in Australia, they have very large farms and ranches that produce cotton, wheat, and sheep. New Zealand has very large farms and ranches as well. Agriculture and wood production is very important. And in the South Pacific, there's a great reliance on fishing and farming. In Tonga and Tuvalu, the economy is based on tourism and the production of natural resources. Question number 4. What is the relationship between land and population, between land and economy? Well, where the land is fertile and there's sufficient water and rainfall suitable for agriculture, and where it provides natural resources, the population will be dense and very likely urban, and the economy will be strong. Where the land is arid, without many natural resources or little rainfall, the population will be very, very sparse, and the economy may struggle. Question number 5. What historical factors have influenced the lives of Aborigines in Australia and the Maori in New Zealand? So this is very similar to the questions, I think, on page 96 and 98 at the start of the chapter. Colonization has meant a great loss of language and culture for Aborigines and the Maori. Many have lower standards of living and levels of education than other Australians and New Zealanders. Long ago, Indigenous people in the South Pacific practiced many religions. Now, most are Christian. Western culture has spread throughout the region, but traditional forms of art, dance, and music continue with some islanders.